Hi, my name is Frank Schaeffer. I am a writer and I am a political activist. That's the one thing about me that hasn't changed. I was born into an evangelical family that the New York Times referred to as evangelical royalty when they did an article on me explaining why I left the movement as someone who no longer bought into the right-wing values of evangelical Christianity. And that was a long time ago, some 30, 40 years ago. As an observer of that movement, however, even I, who left it in disgust at the hatred and the misogyny and the homophobic bigotry and the simple stupidity of believing that the Bible is true in the sense that it contradicts science, but will hold on grimly anyway to the spiritual truths we're raised with, despite all evidence to the contrary. Even I have been shocked by the direction that evangelical Christianity has taken in the era of Trump, where it has become a personality cult. And today we're at a place where evangelical white Christian Trump supporters and voters have gone along with the programs of the far-right Republican Party, funded largely by people like the Koch brothers and the oil and gas industry and others who have seen evangelicals as a useful tool to vote Republicans into power who actually do the bidding of the folks in corporations and the banks and Wall Street and so forth, who have a vested interest in making sure that Democrats don't get elected for monetary reasons of not paying taxes and so forth. Which brings us to the point we're in today that is quite stunning, actually, even for someone who has come from that background and had no expectations of evangelicals doing much good to our culture. But even they have now sunk to the position where actually evangelicals are a threat to all life on earth, quite literally, because they deny that climate change is human-made. And they have bought into the kind of rhetoric and lies funded by the oil and gas and coal lobbies that Donald Trump represents. And they buy into supporting him even as he betrays the Kurds in northern Syria and even the Christians in northern Syria. They have bought into his anti-immigrant policies even as he betrays evangelical and Roman Catholic Christians with brown skin coming across our southern borders from Mexico and Central America. So evangelicalism today is not just a holdover from pre-Enlightenment times, as if somehow the Enlightenment had never happened, as if the Renaissance had never happened, as if the Reformation itself, which began evangelical Protestantism back in Germany with Martin Luther and the other reformers that translated the Bible so ordinary individuals could stand up against kings and popes and bishops and challenge the received wisdom, let alone the founding fathers of America, who gave us a tradition of thinking for ourselves in spite of what the church or the state said, or kings or bishops and these other things. All of this has been swept aside in this personality cult. Now evangelicals are the linchpin of Trump's support. And what does Trump do? He denies climate change is real, and so he literally threatens all life on earth. He denies America's place in the world, and he threatens U.S. influence across the globe to the point where he has gone into a relationship with people like Erdogan of Turkey and Putin of Russia, and has resurrected ISIS as a power by fighting against our friends who have stood with American troops, like my Marine, by the way. My son was a Marine fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq. So as the proud father of a Marine, I am so shocked by the fact that Trump would stab the people in the back who fought alongside people like my son in northern Syria. So my sense of the moment is this, and that is it's time to stop believing that somehow religious liberty trumps an open critique of white evangelical Protestantism. No, these folks do not have the right to interpret religious liberty as bigotry against gay and lesbians. These folks do not have the right to interpret their view of men and women in a new misogynistic crusade to strip women of their right to abortion, of their right to contraception. These folks do not have a right to support a president in his international crime spree of leaning on the folks in the Ukraine to get a personal political deal by going after Joe Biden and his family. And so we have to stop coddling the white evangelical menace and call it for what it is. White evangelicals in America today are very much like the Nazis were in the 30s in the United States, and people like Lindbergh, who were Nazi sympathizers during the time of the rise of Adolf Hitler. They support regimes which are actually anti-American, whether that be Erdogan of Turkey, who is an Islamist activist, who supports terror against the Kurds and Christians, whether it's supporting Putin in his outright hostility toward America. And so evangelical white voters have to be challenged in 2020 and not asked to convert to reason. They will not, but defeated. And what needs to happen now is that people who are progressive and care about this country, who are patriots, who support our armed services, who support the rule of law, who believe that we have an environmental crisis, instead of looking to these crazy evangelicals, people like Pastor Jeffress, who believes that Jesus is coming back soon and that Trump is just a step to that, or Billy Graham's daughter, Ann, who I knew as a child, who went literally on the air on Jim Baker's show recently and said that the reason God had raised up Trump to get us out of northern Syria was, hold everything, folks, you won't believe this, to clear the way for Russia to move into Syria so they could invade Israel and bring about the end times and the return of Jesus. That these people have access to power in our country is obscene. And that anyone cuts them any slack is stupid. These are the enemy of humanity. These are the enemy of the survival of life on Earth. You cannot describe people who don't believe that climate change is real and man-made any other way as a threat to our actual survival. So cut it out with all this talk of religious liberty and tolerance, cutting slack to these folks. It is time to call the white evangelical Trump supporter who she or he is. And that is a menace to our very survival. Thank you. My name is Frank Schaeffer.